Welcome to Join the City True Stories Edition. I'm Bethany Marshall, and you are about to see what God is doing in our city. Coming up, we'll learn about one of the best kept secrets in our area called Contact Altoona.
It's a place for folks to call if they just need someone to talk to.
Also, we'll hear about how God is doing amazing things in the lives of teenagers right here in our city. All that and more coming up now on Join the City True Stories.
God is on the move, hallelujah. God is on the move in many mighty ways. God is on the move, hallelujah. God is on the move today.
Recently, Troy Ferguson had the privilege to spend some time talking to a few staff and volunteers of Contact Altoona.
So Terry, tell me, what is Contact Altoona?
Contact Altoona is a community helpline that's staffed by volunteers 365 days a year. It's a place for folks to call if they just need someone to talk to, or if they need to, for information referral services, if they need to know what services are available in the community. And our helpline also places reassurance calls to folks to remind them to take their medications or just to let them know that somebody cares.
When someone makes a phone call, someone is in a tough situation in their life, whatever it might be, what kind of things goes on in the discussion? Is it almost like a counseling type of thing? What happens during that phone call?
Well, first, everything is completely confidential and anonymous. And then our volunteers use what's called active reflective listening skills. So we're to be that sounding board for the person who's calling. We don't offer advice or pass judgment, but allow the person to share what's going on in their lives. And then in a non-judgmental way of listening back, it allows the caller to identify how they can resolve the situation.
In this phone call, like how long, roughly how long are the phone calls?
They vary. If it's somebody who is strictly looking for information referral services, we gather the information for them and provide that to them. Or it could be somebody who's having a very difficult day. Maybe they just found out that they lost their job and dealing with that tremendous loss and not knowing where to go on, and we spend the time with them.
And what kind of training do the people on the telephone get to be able to handle those challenging calls?
We provide the free training for them. It's done by professionals in our community, and it's skills that folks can use in their everyday life. But it prepares them for the helpline. It's 30 hours of classroom instruction and then 12 hours of apprenticeships, which is sitting with a seasoned volunteer and going through that helpline experience with them.
How many typically people do you have at any given time on the phone?
When there's one person who staffs the helpline at a time, and then we have the 24 hours a day. We would love to be 24 hours a day. That is our ultimate goal. And then the day is actually, the 24 hours is broken down into individual shifts. And then volunteers are able to sign up for what shift that they would like. So it allows them, we're not scheduling them, but allows them to choose based upon their own schedule and lifestyle.
Okay. And you only have one. Is there an opportunity for multiple people to take a phone calls, or is it only one at a time? Is that how it works?
Only one at a time. And part of that reason is our volunteers have the opportunity to use call forwarding. Our helpline center is in an anonymous location in Blair County, and they can come into that center, or they can use call forwarding and staff the helpline from the privacy of their own home.
Okay.
So.
Okay. How the shifts that you have now? You would like to be 24 hours a day, but apparently you're not completely.
Right.
What shifts are not being filled?
The most challenging for us is the overnight shift, which is starts late in the day around 11 and concludes in the morning hours. So that's our most difficult time.
And that's probably a time that a lot of people would, going through turmoil or whatever, they would probably need a service like this.
Right.
Would be ideal. How long has this been around? And give me a little of the history of why this started in this area and all that stuff.
We began in Blair County in 1982. We're fully accredited by Contact USA, which is a national organization, so we're a part of that much larger piece of the puzzle. But the United Methodist Church had provided a seed grant in order to bring contact to Blair County itself, and it was Reverend Gene Zeisloft, or Reverend Jim Zeisloft, I'm sorry, and his wife Jean, who started the contact here in Blair County. And since the phones were turned on in 1982, they've never been turned off. We've provided that continuous service available. It's only through caring, dedicated volunteers. And you might wonder, really, how much of a need is there in Blair County for someone to be a volunteer with Contact? But last year, our volunteers handled 32,589 calls for folks in need.
Is that all Blair County residents primarily?
Primarily Blair County, but our helpline is available to anyone. So we do receive calls from individuals outside of the county or outside of the state who do call us to talk. And since 1982, one of the programs that we've developed is the Reassurance Program. And for many of our community members, they're not ready to take that next step to like nursing home or personal care home. They lived in their homes all their lives, and that's what they know, but maybe they're feeling lonely, just being there. Or they have a medication that they're having trouble remembering to take. They can sign up for a reassurance call, and we will place that to them at a specified time. And
How many of those do you have? How many?
Well, interesting enough, out of the 32,589, over 24,000 of those were the reassurance calls. So our volunteers make more outgoing calls of care and concern than what we receive in incoming helpline calls.
Do people that make the phone calls, do they make them from their homes as well as from the call center location?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And for example, if I was placing a call to you, I would pick up the phone, dial, and say, "Hello, Troy, this is Contact Altoona calling today. How are you?" Just calling to check in with you and engage you in some conversation and that. So even I'm anonymous and
You said something about active listening or something.
yes.
Does that mean that is it more just listening to what's going on in their life and not offering advice? Is that more the premise of that? Explain what that
sure.
active listening is.
Active listening is, in the sense that we as human beings, when we're dealing with something difficult, we turn normally to family or friends, and the majority of the time what we receive from them is advice, or they tell us how to solve our problems. It may not be really listening, but what active reflective listening is hearing the feeling behind the words, and then helping the caller to connect that thought to the feeling and bring resolution to it. So,
Is there a kind of personality that is really good with this kind of stuff versus other types of personalities?
I think the strongest point is a person who cares, who really wants to make a difference, and you cannot even begin to imagine, even with our reassurance clients, how they're anticipating our call, and it's oftentimes the only call that they receive during the day, and we really look forward to that. And then what the training does is it really helps the volunteer to hone their skills so that they can be prepared to maybe suspend giving advice or judgment or telling the person exactly what they need to do or that. So just having that heart and that compassion and wanting to make a difference. So.
And you said about 8 hours a month?
Is all that we ask from a volunteer. We have some volunteers who provide many more hours, but the minimum that we ask for is just 8 hours. So, and again, they're scheduling their own shifts and that, so it provides maximum opportunity.
And how long is a shift typically?
About 4 hours.
Okay. So if they do a 4-hour shift, they're only looking at 2 times a month.
Absolutely.
That's what you're looking for. If they want to do more or whatever,
Right.
that's up to them. But that's really not doesn't require much for someone who'd be willing to do that. What are some of the needs that you guys have that people might be able to help out with?
We're always in need of volunteers. We've been in Blair County for the 35 years, and it's only the work of dedicated volunteers. So the more folks who are willing just to give a moment of their time, they give their time, but they get back so much more as a result.
Thank you for taking the time to watch Join the City. As our program continues to move forward in 2017, we want to ask you, our viewers, to help in a few ways. First of all, continue to watch and encourage others to do the same. This is still the most effective form of advertising available today. Secondly, if you know of an organization or person having a spiritual impact in your community, we want to hear about it. Please email our director at troy@joyinthecity.org. Lastly, financial support is always appreciated because it does cost money to produce these stories, and we feel it's so important to properly capture the good news of our community. Consider sponsoring or advertising with our program. More options for this are coming soon, but if you want to give a tax-deductible donation, you can give directly to Pleasant Valley Assembly of God with a note indicating Joy in the City. And now, back to our story.
All right, tell me, Gary, what do you do here?
I've been with Contact for going on 13 years as a board member and a volunteer, a helpline volunteer. I came on board on the board 13 years in 2004, and then I decided to become a helpline volunteer. I couldn't imagine being on the board and not knowing what's going on, so I volunteered, took the classes, and then became a volunteer, and I've been volunteering since. And right now I'm the president of the board, which it's a big deal for some people, but it isn't. It was my turn.
Okay. So 13 years you've been connected in one way or another.
Yes.
What are some of the stories, challenges, joys that you've experienced in this?
It's been unbelievable, a fantastic experience. I was a salesman for all my life, and I just retired last July.
Okay.
And not that you didn't get any certain amount of satisfaction out of that, but you know, it was a good living. I made a good living doing working as a salesman. Contact Altoona came into my life at a really nice time that I started. It was like giving back to the community. It was a way of, I've lived in Blair County and Altoona all my life, grew up here, raised a family, and I still live here. And I always thought it would be nice to give back to a community like this. And so I got involved with that, and it just gave me a lot of satisfaction I had never gotten in my regular job. It just gave me this, I guess you could call it just a satisfaction, a really nice feeling of helping people and who need help in this community. And the longer I've stayed with Contact, it seems like the years go by, the more we're needed, because the world is changing today, and there's a real need for agencies like Contact Altoona to help people out there who just feel lost, just for somebody who just needs somebody to talk to, and we provide that for them, and it makes you feel good. 35 years old, Contact's 35 years old, and I think we're probably the best kept secret around Blair County.
So it sounds like you guys are a little bit like a resource center to some degree. If somebody doesn't know where to go or who to contact, you can direct them in the right.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's why we tell our students when they come in, the people who are becoming potential volunteers, we're not here to solve these problems for people. Somebody may call and say that she has a problem at home. We say, would you have a minister you can go to? I mean, we give them different suggestions and try to find ways like that for them to go and get help. And then we get the normal, just the regular calls. My greatest call that I've had in 13 years was I just happened to be on a shift one night, and a lady called, and you could just tell by the inflection in her voice, the way she was speaking, she was just really upset. And she come home from work, and she told her husband to take their kids to the movie. She just wanted a night to herself. And so he did this, and she had a little magnet that we give out magnets at these different little shows we go to, been on her refrigerator for like a year, never called. She decided to call that one night, and I just happened to be on the phone that one night. And we just talked, and she said, I feel guilty feeling this way about sending my husband and the kids out. And I said, hey, I've raised kids. You don't feel guilty about that. You shouldn't feel. And we talked for about 10 minutes. And you could just tell the longer we talked, the easier her voice got. And finally, at the end, she said, I just want to thank you for being there. I mean, you're ready to pull 15 shifts in a row after you get a call like that. Those calls are rare, but you do get people like that who sometimes just are at wit's end and don't know which way to go. And we offer a friendly voice. We always said we're like the lighthouse in the darkness for some people.
Sure. So Trudy, tell me what you do with Contact Altoona.
Right now, I'm on a home reassurance team. I make calls one evening a week to individuals in their homes and just check on their well-being, remind them to take their medications, and a little social visit.
Okay. So this program has been in existence since 1982, did I see? Yeah, 1982. How long have you been involved?
Since 1982.
Since 1982. So since
Yes.
day one, you've been part of this.
Actually, prior to, because I was serving on the board of the City Union of the United Methodist Churches,
Okay.
and that's where contact began.
Were you part of a team to start this? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, where did you get the idea, the concept to move forward with something like this?
Well, at that time, there was Contact USA.
Okay.
One of the ministers on the board knew of Contact USA, felt that there was a need in Altoona for such a service,
And what about this has kept you involved since that time?
well, I think initially it was because I cared about the continuity. I wanted to see it continue, and then after a while, it was continuing, and I thought, well, this is wonderful to be part of an organization. I mean, here we are 35 years in, staffed by volunteers 365 days a year. You know, for 35 years, I just think that's an awesome, organization.
So, have you been part of the people who have received the phone calls when people are having issues? You've been part of that as well as
Yes.
making the calls.
Yes.
And what is that like at the end of it? Let's say you do that for 4 hours in the shift. At the end of that, are you emotionally exhausted? Are you engaged? Are you fulfilled? What happens to you, someone who's a volunteer to do this? What happens in that type of situation?
Well, I think all three of those things. Some days it's very fulfilling. Some day it's very emotionally
Exhausting?
exhausting. Thank you. And other days, people are just grateful to have a voice, a person to speak to, a listening voice. Well, now I make 6 calls a week, every week. Over the years, I mean, some shifts we would only have maybe 1 or 2 calls.
Okay.
Some shifts we would have 10 calls or 11 calls, and those were the emotionally draining sessions. But
So in a 4-hour shift, is a call typically about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or just varies?
varies.
Okay.
It really varies. Some people need longer. I mean, we have histories of people who have talked maybe over an hour. You know,
Okay.
that they just felt they had the need to.
Is there a story you could tell of something that has been a highlight over your course of many years, of like, this is one of the reasons that I keep doing this? Any stories like that?
Now, at this point in my life, when I make these calls in the evening, you know, many evenings when I go to hang up from a call and the person will say, I love you, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your call. And to me, that's very rewarding.
Explain to me, from your perspective, the value of this.
The value of Contact Altoona, it reaches out to the community. There's a lot of people out there that really need a listening ear. The people who just don't have family nearby or don't have relationships with their families and need somebody that they can feel confident in speaking with. And sometimes they really, get really detailed and intimate with their lives and things they wouldn't feel comfortable telling somebody, even maybe that they are close to. They feel more relaxed telling somebody whose face they don't see, who they don't really
Sure.
know. As long as you're, on the other end of the line, making them feel comfortable, and that's what we want to do. We want to make the people in the community feel, confident and comfortable in the conversation. And sometimes the best times are when you get a phone call from somebody who's very forlorn and very depressed and just, kind of feeling at the end of their ropes, and they call the contact line, and engage in a conversation with that person, and at the end of the conversation, they're laughing, and you can hear them smiling at the other end of the line. And, sometimes they express their gratitude. I am so glad you're here. And, thank you so much, because I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had somebody like you listening. And there's nothing more gratifying than knowing that you really took, a situation that somebody was feeling so down, and
Sure.
and all of a sudden, they're feeling good again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you involved with the call out
Yeah.
part of the program? Okay.
Yeah.
And what's
so-
what's been your experience? What's that been like?
That's really gratifying, because those folks are expecting your call. They, for the most part, they want your call. So those are often very pleasant conversations. And you find that when you speak with the same people, you tend to. We don't all do this, but a lot of the volunteers tend to work the same shift, because it's whatever works in your schedule,
Sure.
And you tend to talk to the same people over and over again, one shift after another, and you kind of feel like these people, and they you kind of develop a rapport of sorts with these people. So you look forward to talking to them each shift, and they tend to recognize your voice as well, and everything's confidential here, so we don't share our names or anything, although some people have wanted to know our names, but it's just something that, we need to keep it confidential, so we don't share that. But they do recognize your voice, and they know they've spoken to you before, and oftentimes know stories they've told you before, and so, yeah, you develop a rapport with these folks, and it's something I look forward to.
Sure.
So.
I want to thank everyone for taking the time to talk with us about this great organization. If you're watching this and feel you need someone to talk to, please call the helpline at 946-9050. But what we are pushing for today is more volunteers to help with calls, as well as making calls for the Reassurance program, as calls are confidential and all training is provided at no cost. If you're interested in this aspect of this organization, contact their administration office at 946-0531. Since our program began, we've brought you a few testimonies of what God has done in the lives of people here in our community. Today, we want to bring you a few quick stories from local students.
Before Jesus, I was mainly a jerk. That's how I would classify myself. I hung out with a crowd of kids that wasn't always the best to hang out with. I was always swearing, getting myself in trouble somehow. I would consider myself someone that was very distant from God.
I grew up around a whole bunch of drugs in my family. And my dad, he was the kingpin. The stress that I saw like the females in my family going through, and I wanted to be different. And I felt like everyone was trying to be the same, following everyone else's footsteps.
The way I went through school every day, it was just getting methodical. I would do my stuff every day. I was doing it just to get out of it. I wasn't really doing anything after school, so I kind of felt alone at times and angry a lot.
I would drink and party and do whatever I felt would fill me up.
I was in a place where I was lost and I didn't know where I was gonna end up, and you don't know what direction you're headed.
And there was these people outside handing out flyers, and the flyers said Ignited on them, and it was a church program. Andrew was big in the church. I really wasn't, because I never was open to it. No one ever really bothered to teach me about it, nor did I really know what religion exactly was. So I really just did my own thing. But then Andrew really broke down what it was to me in a McDonald's, and so I decided to give it a try. 1 week it went, and I was like, okay, it's pretty cool. Next week I got saved. It was amazing.
My first experience when I felt the power of Jesus, of God, is when I was at the door camp, and people you don't know that you met there, they was giving their testimonies, and I was touched by a couple of them, because like you don't know, it's like don't judge a book by its cover. Like you think you know what they're going through, but you really don't. Like you would never think people are going through what they're going through, because they have a smile on their face, but inside they're really hurting. But you should try to find a path with God no matter what. Like there's a lot of people I know who says, well, I won't be able to do this or I can't do that, but like that's just what people tell you. I've been told I couldn't do stuff my whole entire life, and I achieved most of the stuff that they said I couldn't do.
I was getting tired of doing the same thing all the time, and I wanted something different in my life. We saw the poster and we begged our parents to let us go, and so they did. And whenever we were there, it just felt like something different was happening, and something inside me just changed, and I felt like that this was where I needed to be with my faith right then.
I started going to church on Thursdays. I started coming on Tuesdays. I started going to church on Wednesdays. I started going on Saturdays. I started going on Sundays. Like I just like made sure like every day was filled with church, so I didn't have like any time to lack. Just seeing all the people that I knew were Christians still cry out and like say, you know, God, I still need help. I was like, wow, I'm not the only one that still needs help, even though I know I'm a Christian. I still have ways to go. So I was like, you know, it made me feel like it's time to like give up all the rest of the stuff because everybody still needs help.
Whenever I was brought out of the place where I felt lost, what brought me out was probably my parents, just seeing them like figuring out where they need to be and showing me where I need to be, because it gives me hope. And he died for me. He laid down his entire life just so I could live. He knew I was gonna live, and he knew I was gonna be who I am today, and I think that really motivates me.
I felt like I was just reborn and made new.
That's all the time we have today. Thanks for watching Join the City True Stories. I want to encourage you to join us every weekday at 9:30 a.m. We'll start the week off with a challenging message from Pleasant Valley Assembly Monday and Tuesday morning. On Wednesday at 9:30, we'll be inspired by the True Story edition of the program, such as you saw today. On Thursday and Friday at the same time, we'll dig into the archives of our messages, testimonies, and other ministry programs. Be sure to watch Join the City Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Be encouraged because God is moving in our city.
God is on the move.